Hi everybody, this is Vicki at Mika's Craftin' Shack. I'm going to start my first tutorial, so please bear with me on this. I've not actually done anything as a tutorial, I've just done flip throughs and stuff. I found this old, well it's not old, it's new. It's a ledger, 16 by 12. I found this at Tuesday morning for $11.99. I found two of them. Retail price was supposed to be $36.99. I knew they were awful large to do something with. They've got a faux leather cover, and on the corners an elastic strap that keeps it bound, and then the entire back has this faux leather cover. But this to me is too big to carry around and do something with. So I'm going to work on turning it into more of a portable desk that I can take with me any place and still have to where I can do my designs and measurements and all that kind of stuff, and just have it more portable. It is full of this old vintage looking ledger paper, which I just love, and I have been able to just take the canvas right here and just pull on both sides, and I can remove the entire batch of papers out of this. So that's what I did, and then I'm going to use the papers in the book that I actually end up making for myself here. Okay, so rather than sit and watch me do all that, that's how I did that. So this is what I started with. Let me move this out of the way. This is what I ended with. Doesn't look like much now, that's for sure. But what I'm doing is I'm making a type of a lap book. The two very outer pieces are 8 by 12. And those that are familiar with the lap books, you have two inner pieces and they will flip like this. These are 7 3/4 by 12. So you have two of them that measure 7 3/4 by 12. Then you have two, and this is the holes. I had to take the grommets out that was in there holding that band to be able to get my leather to lay down flat on here. So then you've got two that are 8 by 12s. I already cut these down so that you don't have to watch me do every bit of this on camera, because it took quite a bit of time. My edges are going to be showing the way that I'm going to do it, so I went around everything first with Dark Espresso, the Tim Holtz stain. Went around all of the edges on all four sides, and then after that dried, I came back with Vintage Gold in the Distress Paints and just kind of daubed randomly and went through and did all of that on those. Now, since the other one was covered with canvas and the faux leather, I'm not a huge, I love canvas, but not the gray canvas that was on it. So I'm going to do mine differently all the way around. So the cover, this is what I'm going with. This is the original faux leather that was on the back of it. I cut it down into strips where all of my folds, my spines are going to be. And then I did 3 decorative stitches. I did a straight stitch, and then this stitch, and this one, I don't know what they're called, sorry. I did those in a copper thread. I do have the gold thread, but I didn't want them to show out that much. This is a faux leather cork, and it just feels so soft, the same way with the pleather or whatever it is that came on the original one. So I left for when you open it up, here's for the 4 pieces. They're still all connected. I'm sorry, I can't get all of this in frame. I cut the piece to fit the chipboard exactly. And then I cut, for the first spines, I wanted a 1-inch spine, so I cut at 3 inches, overlapped 1 inch, and put these stitches. On my particular one, I'm not going to put a hard spine. I want these totally bendable, both backwards and forwards, and you'll see why as we go on. So this is basically what the spine is going to be. Then when it's totally closed up, this is the spine of everything. This one, I have a 2-inch in the middle, and again 1 inch on each side. So you would cut this piece at 5 inches. So you need 2 3-inch pieces and 1 5-inch piece. And all I did was lay the cork down and go through. You do have to remember how they're going to be folded to get the correct spines. But just remember, on each side is your short spines. So you'll have a 3-inch over here, a 3-inch over here, and a 5-inch here in the middle where it will fold up on itself. Okay, when I'm attaching something like this, I'm absolutely in love with that heat and bond. It makes the material or leather or anything a little bit stiffer to work with, but it also keeps it soft and pliable to where you can move it and everything. But what I really like is when I take this and I put this piece in here, all I have to do is pull this, well, I'll just show you. We will pull this backing off. The heat and bond you glue on, well, if I can get a hold of it, it is made as a glue on both sides. So I put it down first on my material and I iron it on. When you peel the backing off, you are left with another sheet of, or with the backing, I should say, of the heat and bond, which is also going to stick to this when you run an iron over it. Now, to make sure that I've got everything in place, I take Fabri-Tac and I run a bead around just to get everything lined up before I take it to the iron. And the Fabri-Tac doesn't hurt anything. When you run the iron on it, it just kind of melds into the actual heat and bond and stuff. So I just put just enough to tack it down good until I get all my pieces on. Okay, so I line this up over at the very edges. Make sure I've got it centered all the way around. And then press. Now this would be enough to hold it all on its own, but once I get all of these done, I will go back to the iron. I will lay parchment paper over this and run an iron over it, and that flattens everything, gets out any bubbles, melts the heat and bond, and it is stuck. That's why I use the Fabri-Tac before I iron it, And that way, if I have to move anything, I can still do it. Once you iron the heat and bond, it's stuck there. You can't make any changes at that point. Now, if you don't want to use heat and bond, or you're going to cover yours with paper, then I would simply take a piece of the chipboard and I would run double-sided sticky tape or Suquane. It goes by a lot of different names. This one's called Express-It. You can use any of these and just layer them. And I would cover the entire fronts on the outside of any type of a book. That way you don't have any type of a bubble movement or anything. Or you can take the Fabri-Tac that I just used and just glue it all down. You can also use Mod Podge, matte medium. There's so many different things that you can use to do that. So just depending on what you want to cover it with and what your favorite glues and adhesives are, just go with whatever you like the best. Okay, so I've got the first one stuck temporarily. So I will go on to the second one. And I allowed the heat and bond to go over into the spine, because once I get all the inside covered, I'm going to use a cream color canvas in strips to adhere down the spine on the inside, which will just reinforce this leather. But I also am going to fringe the edges of it. I love the look of that. This is some of the paper that was on the original board. Okay, so let me find a corner that I can start peeling. Oh, that was going to come easy. Well, maybe spoke a little too soon. You do want to get all the paper off before you iron this again, because any place there's paper left, it is not going to stick. Okay, this right here is where the actual chipboard is going to lay. Right in the middle. And the rest of this is your spine on each side. I'll move over a little bit more. I'm about to hit my camera, so I can't go too much more. Okay, so again, I will run a bead of Fabri-Tac around the edges. Now, if you're using paper and you don't want the edges to show, just remember to cut your paper 1 inch longer on the top and 1 inch longer on the sides. Then you can score it at a 1/2 inch on all 4 sides and just wrap it around. Then when you put your inside paper, it will hide where you wrapped it. Okay, and again, try to get this lined up all the way around. Okay, I'm going to have to stand up here a second, so I can't see the top. I'm too short. Okay, and we're going to go right here. Okay, now we have 2 of them done. We can move over to the next side now. For these tutorials, I am going to do in little short additions and things. I don't want you to have to sit and watch me do all the ironing or do all the sewing, things like that. So I'm going to try to prep everything ahead of time so we can just put together. If you have any questions over how I'm doing something or I'm not explaining it well enough, please leave me a comment and I will get back to you and let you know in more detail what I'm doing. Okay, we've got one little piece left right there. Okay, and then we need our Fabri-Tac again. I always do a heavier bead around the edges. Just simply, you know, when you flip a book and things like that, it's always the edges that get worn first. But I tend to get kind of heavy-handed with Fabri-Tac, so I have to be really careful that I don't put enough on that it's going to squish out the corners. Okay, so line this one back up. And I do have maybe 1/8 of an inch all the way around that shows. And that is fine because when it's folded up and everything and I have my inside covers on, you're not going to see any of that at all. Okay, and I did exactly what I said I usually do. I have some Fabri-Tac squishing out down here. So if you catch it right away, you can just take a paper towel or a baby wipe and get that off of there. Okay, I think I need to go up just a tiny bit. And see, I can do that since I have the Fabri-Tac on there. If I had already ironed this, I could not have changed that. Okay, another one done. So I'll fold that up and we'll put the last one on. Okay, that one's stuck down under this one, so that one will be okay. Now, something you do have to think about at this stage is what type of a closure you want. And I've got to make up my mind on that myself, because if you want to go back with the expanding elastic and the grommets after this piece is put down, before you put your inside covering piece, you'll want to attach the grommets and the elastic so that they won't show on the inside. So I have to decide what I'm going to do on that before we go and cover every one of the inside pieces. Okay, now on the outside edge, make sure you've got it lined up right along here, just as best as you can. We'll make sure that the chipboard isn't sticking out over here, especially because it will show, and the edges of the leather will start rubbing as you grab it to open and close it, and it could start ruining your leather. Okay, this needs to go up. Okay, then I need to go back over. Thank goodness for Fabri-Tac. Okay, there we have all of our outside covers done. Now, if you're using the double-sided score tape, I don't peel every piece off at one time. I pull one piece and line it up. Like for instance here, I would start on this side. I would line that one up and stick it down, and then just raise this edge and pull all the rest off. You can also take a glue stick and run over this before you stick it down, and that will give you a little bit of wiggle room before you actually use your bone folder on it and flatten everything out and seal it really good. Okay, so the next stage that I will do is I'm going to take this back to my iron. I will lay these out one at a time, put parchment paper over them, and then I'm going to iron them really, really good to make sure that the heat and bond and the Fabri-Tac are all melted together and to the chipboard to hold everything totally in place. So the next time we come back, we will start on the insides. Like I said, I'm going to be building mine as a work desk to travel with me, to put custom orders, to keep my list of contacts, all that type of stuff. After this one is done, I'm going to do another one that is like a regular lap desk, a lap book. And that way you can see another type of way of doing it. I haven't quite decided on everything I'm going to do inside yet, but I've got pretty much figured out what I'm going to do. So when we come back, I will have my inside pieces cut, and I will have my strips of canvas to cover through here all cut for it. Again, these should be 3 inches by 12, and this one you'll need 2 3x12s in canvas, and you will need 1 5x12 in canvas. We won't be gluing the entire inch down over here because we'll be running a stitch to stop it from fraying. So we'll only glue like a 1/2 inch because I want mine to fray. I love that look. So that will be it on this tutorial. I hope you enjoy it. I know I did a lot of it off camera, but it's a little difficult as large as this is to get it all in camera, and I didn't think you really wanted to see me sit and sew 4 pieces of leather with the spines and then just do nothing but iron on the Fabri-Tac. So like I say, I'm going to iron this, get the pieces cut to start on the inside next time. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment below. If you like the tutorial, please remember to give me a thumbs up. Again, this is Mika's Craftin' Shack. I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.